Cow. We are Golden Girls.
We are.
Episode 50, you guys. The death penalty only creates more victims. It re-victimizes the victim's family. It doesn't bring anything back. It doesn't end crime. It just creates more death and more violence because you're murdering someone else.
There are so many people who have committed violent crimes or have been accused of it that are great humans and great people that deserve these second chances. It's something that happened and it's terrible, yes, but this person is so much more than this one event.
In our legal system, if this is true on this side, then this side is a dirty, filthy liar. And that is not justice. People say, well, it's the best we've got, but is it?
We have to use the voices for the voiceless to get these cases re-looked at. Pennsylvania is getting ready to put up a bill to abolish the death penalty.
So I remember when I was talking to Mike and we were talking during Met While Incarcerated filming, and he said, you've got to meet my buddy Jimmie and you've got to hear about him. He's innocent. Once you get people believing something, it's very hard to get them to unbelieve it. And that's what happened in Jimmie Duncan's case. What I hope this story does is to take a different path on it. Let's trust people with the truth, not the case. The case is the law. It is what certain people can say. It's what gets accepted. It's what doesn't. The truth is the true story of the people who lived it.
This is for the prison wife. Still don't break, love don't fold. I'm still here, I'm still gold. Through the glass,
Cow. We are Golden Girls.
We are.
I feel like Sophia. And it's been 84 years. No, it's episode 50, you guys. 50.
Like, what the hell?
Our baby is older than mom here.
Oh,
okay.
It's been older than mom. Okay. Goodbye.
So we are so excited to have episode 50. We have an awesome pod for you today. I can't thank the Wallers enough for getting us to episode 50.
Period.
I mean, every week you just make it so easy for us to come back and do another one and do another one and do another one. And, you know, you guys sending us messages, responding to our posts and responding to our questions, doing all the things and supporting the pod. Guys, every time you send me something, I'm like, my heart is so full. You don't understand how much this means. Like, we never thought we would get to 50. Like, we never thought that. I never thought that, at least. I don't know about you, Paige, but I mean, obviously I had goals, but 50 was not a number that I even thought about.
Nope. So we owe it all to our Wallers and everyone who continues to listen to us. And we literally got a notification on Spotify today that said we had our
25,000 listens.
That's so exciting, and I can't believe someone wants to listen to my fucking voice. But
and let's talk about prison shit.
I know.
You know? That's awesome.
Some prison shit.
I love that. Thank you guys for getting us there on Spotify and reaching goals that we never knew were possible. So thank you. All right. So before we get started, though, we're going to go ahead and give a shout out to our beautiful sponsor, Beyond Bars Imaging. Guys, we keep getting questions. Who can merge my pictures? Who can take two pictures and put them together?
Yeah.
Well, look no further, because your girl Paige is a genius and she is absolutely brilliant. Not only that, she can take your prison pictures and make them look amazing and not so prison visity, if you want to, or prison-y, if you want to call it that. So get at your girl. She can do your spring, Easter, Memorial Day, 4th of July, whatever you want to do, whatever background you want. If you want a wedding picture, she can make that happen too. I know summer weddings are about to start happening. So reach out to Paige here, slide on into her DMs and or hit her up on the Facebooks, the Instagrams, or the TikToks, and you can see all of her brilliant, marvelous work on Beyond Bars Imaging. All right, Paige, you ready to get this party started?
Born ready.
All right. We ride at dawn. Here we go. Where's my thing? Here we go. All right. What up with that? What up with that? All All right. What up with that legislation, Paige? You got anything?
I do. I have some exciting news coming out of my home state, Pennsylvania.
Whoop whoop.
We have House Bill 888, which would remove the death penalty as an option for punishment for first-degree murder in Pennsylvania, thus leaving life imprisonment as the remaining alternative. Super exciting. This was
exciting.
actually proposed by a Republican from Lebanon County.
Okay.
So we absolutely love that. He is the chief sponsor of the bill. He said that he is morally opposed to the government determining who should live or die, a position that he said is not one that is split, that is, hi, can I talk today? Okay. Is morally opposed to the government determining who should live or die, a position he says is not one that is split among party lines. You can disagree with my philosophical ideology, you can disagree with my politics, and still arrive at the same spot, which is Pennsylvania should not be pursuing the death penalty.
Amen and amen again.
Period, Russ. Period, Russ Diamond. Pennsylvania hasn't executed anyone here since 1999. We've had the moratorium up. Governor Wolf, shout out Governor Wolf, put that up, and Joshi Poo has no intentions of taking that down. He's continued to push it up, and you know, it's just everything that we've said. The Republican representative who proposed this literally said that death penalty cases can be very costly and lengthy because of the appeal process, and then it can just re-traumatize the murder victims' families and potentially span over decades of just re-victimizing these people and the taxpayers.
Not only that, can I add something?
Yeah.
The death penalty only creates more victims. Like it re-victimizes the victim's family, and it doesn't bring anything back. It doesn't really do anything to, end crime, and it just creates more death and more violence because you're murdering someone else.
Yep. The last thing I just had on here was that wrongful convictions are obviously another major concern that a lot of people don't seem to even talk about when we talk about the death penalty, pointing out that cases over the years in Pennsylvania and also around the country have had multiple people exonerated for serious crimes even after their deaths. So like things that you're not thinking about. So, one mistake in the death penalty means a death if that person is executed, and that's an innocent person, and we can't afford that. Morally, I have a problem with that. And honestly, I have not heard of this state representative, Russ Diamond, but I am super intrigued to I'm going to connect with him on my Twitter and stuff, because I love, I don't care if you're a Republican, I love that you're speaking out, and it's something that is not typically spoken out with by a Republican in Pennsylvania. So, I mean, that's really exciting. And I think that the fact that he is Republican has a lot more potential for maybe that to get pushed through.
Correct. And I think it holds weight, and it shows the bipartisan effort, because we already know, a lot of the other side wants to abolish the death penalty. And I know, let me just say, I love Joshi Poo. I wish Joshi Poo was my governor. I told Paige last night, I'm jealous that you have a great governor. So I hope, and I know that he would wholeheartedly support that. And we're going to talk about, this is going to roll right into what we're talking about today, with the death penalty being not used correctly to the point where people are innocent on death row. So, yep.
Literally. The other story that I had for What Up With That was one that I literally found this morning, which is absolutely disturbing. 140 inmates treated for scabies during a lockdown at Utah State Correctional Facility.
Yikes.
Lockdown protocols have been activated in a portion of a Utah State Correction Facility in Salt Lake City, as over 100 inmates are being treated for scabies after one person tested positive for the skin disease. They're quarantined right now. They're being treated. A lot of people have tested negative, but this is a whole nother example of, when one of those things gets in there, it's like
it's hard to control because everybody's living in such close quarters. Like
Correct.
any type of, parasite or disease or bacteria, it's just very, very dangerous once it gets into a prison dorm or complex.
So, it's highly contagious. It's through skin to skin contact. So, like, along with all the treatments that they're having to do, I read that they have to wash all the clothing, all of the bedding has to have disinfectant, and there are other areas of the unit that have to be clean. And the units is like a dorm. So it's like
Yeah.
a dorm style building with 4 beds in the pods. So it's a very open setting and the perfect place for scabies to grow. And it's just sad because I'm sure people just read that article and were like, haha, don't
They
get
deserve
arrested.
it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I know. But still, it's not
My
fun,
heart goes out.
especially, yes, because first of all, it's not fun to have that. If you've ever had it, it's miserable. And then obviously, it's going to be probably a cycle where people get it and then get it again because of such close quarters. So it's hard to not eradicate, but like get rid of when you're in close confined quarters like that. That's why COVID was such a huge deal
Yep.
because they were all together in dorms and pods and things. So yeah, my heart goes out to them and their families because if they're on lockdown, if they're quarantined, they're not going to visit.
Oh, hell no.
Yep.
The last thing that prison needs is a charge where they let the scabies out. And
Yeah. For sure. I just have one thing or two things real quick that are coming out of Louisiana, and then one thing out of Texas that I want to talk about, and then I'll be quick with it though. The Louisiana, please go vote against I talked about this last week, the 4 amendments. A lot of them have to do with criminal justice, putting children in Angola, putting children in adult prisons. Please, please, please go out there and vote no for all 4 amendments. Also in Louisiana, and Jim Crow is coming out again for this legislative season. And we're hoping and hoping and hoping this is one piece of criminal justice reform that will happen. Where if you are not convicted by all 12 jurors, it's technically unconstitutional. However, it's not retroactive. So you have men, at least 6,000 or 1,600 men in prison right now that have Jim Crow jury results and are still serving time for an unconstitutional sentence. So please, please, please be on the lookout for that and support. I know it's a racist policy that goes back to pre-Civil War times or post-Civil War times. So y'all, we need to get on this and support that because I think we're maybe one of 2 states that still has that, so most states have gotten rid of that, obviously. And then the other thing in Texas, they are rolling out over 100 pieces of legislation to roll back criminal justice reform. What is it? Mandatory
minimums.
minimums are coming back in Texas if these bills pass. There's
my
so
God.
many. And guys, if you need a resource, I know Addie's got it. She knows all of these bills inside and out. But guys, just know that when you elect your officials that they are putting forth these types of bills where you have over almost 100 bills that could make criminal justice reforms roll back and increase obviously the mass incarceration population. So
Wow.
yeah.
Well,
All right.
Well-
Well, hey, Catherine, how are you? You look so pretty.
ew, oh my God.
I had to keep up, girls.
Oh, okay. You look
I had to
great.
level up for
Lighting.
today. This is not my usual Saturday hair. I'll tell you that.
Well, you look fabulous,
Thank you.
honey.
So do you. And it's nice to meet you,
Thank you.
Paige. I've never met
Yeah.
you in, this way.
Yeah, so nice to meet
Yeah.
you.
Well, guys, we have an awesome, wonderful 50th pod episode here for you guys today. And let me just introduce Miss Catherine Legge. She is one incredible, inspirational, brilliant woman who is a producer. I always want to say a documentarian. Is that a word?
That is a word.
Okay.
Or you could say
Okay.
a documentary filmmaker. Either way.
Okay. She's a documentary filmmaker, aka a documentarian, and just it sounds so regal when I say it like that. And she is working right now on an amazing project that kind of goes with what we were just talking about with the death penalty and wrongful convictions and things like that. So I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit and tell us a little bit about herself.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I've been following the pod, of course, and I love it. And I'm really excited for both of you. Congrats on your 50th episode. Um,
Thank you.
Yeah.
me. I'm a documentarian, filmmaker, journalist, mom, concerned citizen. Um, humanitarian, all of those things, and I think they all roll into one in almost every way. Um, and so I think, well, we can talk about how I met you originally, but I've been working on justice stories for a long time. I'm going to say 30 years. Um, and so there's a lot to that. And I think you actually build up to a point of understanding something, y'all and your listeners. Oh, by the way, I'm throwing the y'alls around now because I've been in Louisiana a lot.
Yes.
People from Louisiana tell me it's cute the way I say it. I'm trying to get better at the accent, but yeah, I'm gonna drop y'alls. In Canada, we would say you guys, and that sounds, quite a
That's
bit
what we say
different.
here too.
Right. So, your audience would have a level of understanding that most people don't. And I, have come to participate in people's lives who have that level of understanding through my work. And it's been a great honor because I honestly believe that justice is all around us. It's in everything we are and everything that we do. And if we don't, start to understand each other and what that means, like at the personal level, not the court level, not the criminal justice system level, but at the personal level. If we don't understand that, we'll never get better at it. And we're not very good at justice right now.
Yes, 100% true.
It's all about the
And that's what, like, we,
personalization.
oh, go ahead, Paige. I'm sorry.
All about like the personalization and making
Yeah.
them like humanizing these people
That's
to
right.
everyone.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what led me to be a part of your project, Met While Incarcerated, also known as From Prison with Love, the documentary that came out in 2018. We filmed it back in October 2017, which was, I was like 1 year in at that point on my prison wife journey. But the whole point of me like doing that documentary was because of the fact that you made Michael and the other men in that documentary so human, that they were truly people to be looked at, and looking at them and then how can they be in these situations, like how did they get here and what can we do to make things better, for our country and for the justice system as a whole as well.
That's right. I was so happy to meet you. I kind of fell into the prison wives world by accident. An accidental Google led me to a website, and I thought, what? This is, women can write to men who are in prison. And then I started to meet all kinds of people, and I sort of feel like I embedded myself in the world for about 4 years of all of the ups and downs of people at various stages, from people brand new to the relationship, MWI, and otherwise. And then, but I wanted the documentary to be people who were really in their relationship and people who were at a pivotal moment in the relationship. Because I really, I set out after meeting so many people like yourselves I just decided I don't want this to be a debate. This documentary isn't about, are they right? Are they wrong? Are they good? Are they bad? Do I agree with them or not? I wanted it to be a love story. And I
Mhm.
wanted an unabashed love story, like no apologies, because that's how we all fall in love. And I
Mm.
wanted people to remember that love is blind and that everybody gets to be brand new when they fall in love. And so that to me was the journey. And but that journey has stakes. When it's real, it has moments that have stakes. And so I wanted the people's stories that I was following to have really high stakes, that they were making decisions, they were thinking things through, just like we all are at stakes moments in all of our relationships. So it was so great to meet you and to be able to meet Mike. I still think about being in Louisiana with you at that time, and I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember standing on your front lawn, and we had finished filming for the day, and you said to me, "Do you think I'm crazy?"
Yeah, I really did.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Because you were
Yeah.
early into your relationship, and I mean, everybody goes through that, but I think you were asking, are you honestly, person to person, do you think I'm crazy? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember
And you
telling
really,
you no.
no, like,
Hmm.
this is love. And, that we're all human. And just because they're incarcerated doesn't mean they're not deserving of love. And they're not allowed to have relationships, and
Hmm.
obviously, 9 years later, I was going to bring that point up. I was actually going to bring that moment up because I was like, oh, wow. Like, I remember I was going to say, Catherine, do you still think I'm crazy? Like,
Do you still think I'm not crazy? Should be the
yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I just want to say, because this was going to be our big reveal, obviously, for anyone that has watched or followed Met While Incarcerated, that I have now obviously come out of the closet. When I did film with you, I was not on camera, or we used like cartoons, or you put cartoon pictures over my face. And I was Angela. And I used my grandmother's first name
I was gonna ask
because I didn't.
where you picked that from.
Yeah, it was my grandmother's first name, and I always felt like my grandmother brought Michael and I together. And so I decided to use her name as my pseudonym because I didn't want to be identified at the time. And now, since then, obviously, it's been very good for me. It protected me in that moment, but since then, I have come out of the closet more doing this podcast. So I just wanted to finally reveal myself 9 years later as
Angela.
AKA Angela here,
Well, I'm so glad that you did, and I know how brave it is. I know where you live. Think I understand Louisiana a little bit better now, after all these years and my fascination with it, my strange fascination with it. But I'm so glad that you did, as I say, I think it's so brave of you to do it. And that needs to be, you know, the people who are going to push anything forward are going to be the people who are courageous. And honestly, courage is contagious. It is the thing that someone says, if they can do it, I can do it. And I haven't posted on the Met While Incarcerated socials for a long time. I'm just starting again because of this new project, but I get so many people who come to that page. I get some every week, all these years later. That film has been seen around the world. It's been seen in more than 30 countries.
So cool.
It continues all these years later to have a fascination and hold, I think, because, we stuck with universals around love and friendship and justice and big ideas, that it continues to resonate. And so I'm so glad that now you can own that and talk about it however you want.
Yeah, and I love sharing. I love hearing you on other platforms or other programs talk about it. I get so excited about it. I still, to this day, get very excited about it. I think that project was such a beautiful project. Like you said, because it shows those aspects of humanity, love, and building relationships through difficult circumstances. And so I'm glad that people are still excited about it, because I'm still excited about it. I tell all my friends about it still to this day. And I was proud to be a part of that. And you are such an inspiration as a woman in that industry. It was so cool to see how you handle things, how you work around things, and just watching the whole process take place and being a part of that. So thank you so
Thank you.
much.
I really hope that people draw some inspiration from it. I think that whole idea of a love story, it's just remember what it was like, when you get to be brand new to someone and
Mhm.
they get to be brand new to you and you create your own path from that point forward. That's where I had a lot of people from very different backgrounds. My goal was that anybody could watch this. It's always my goal. I'm never out for a side or these are my people or this is my point of view. It's always to say, could anyone watch this and connect with it? And they did, even people who originally, when I told them, I remember when I started the project, I had come off working on this comedy, and this comedy show I was working on, everyone would say, oh, what'd you do this week? And I tell them some great funny stories of life on the road and they would love it. And then so one of my friends said, what are you working on? And I said, actually, I'm working on this documentary about, I want to do this documentary about women who fall in love with men who are in prison who've, committed violent crimes. And he physically reacted to me and looked away. Now, that's a very natural thing because
Mhm.
it's a physical response. I'm sure y'all have seen it a million times. And that to me is my moment of connection.
Hmm.
That's our moment of connection. It's to say, wait a minute, there's something here between us that just happened. And that's the story I want to tell. Like, why do you pull away like that? And why do you look like that? And his feeling was like, kind of with all the power or influence or whatever platform you might have as a filmmaker, this is what you want to do. And I said, I want to do it because of exactly what just happened here. That's
Hmm.
why.
Yep.
And so I
I
knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew some people wouldn't like it. I've never cared about people who don't like it. I think if you're doing something that everybody likes, then you're not doing it right
Mhm.
because, you're not taking chances. You're not pushing people to find themselves in the story and you're not pushing them to feel the ache and the pain and the joy and the heartbreak and all of it. And that's what I wanted. So I'm happy that it reaches people from all walks of life still.
I think
Yes.
I think that's so important too because when people hear like violent crimes or things like that, like even they like immediately shut down or like if it's any other kind of producer or people I've talked to before, like they get interested and want to like exploit it or like make it like something else. And it's like
Yeah.
that is something that happened and it's terrible, yes, but this person is so much more than this one event. And they had a whole life that even happened before this event that is completely just not a factor anymore. And it's so important to storytell the way that you do. And I just love the way that you do it and humanize people.
Well, thank you. I like to say that just I give people, I hope, a voice because they are humanizing themselves. It's just a
Hmm.
lot of people we're talking about don't get to speak for themselves. And this is
Hmm.
amazing. When you come to a lot of court cases, people, things that where there are thousands of pages of documents detailing every second of this person's life, what they did when they were 7 and 12, and what they did when they were 20, and everything gets re-examined. And I think, but we never hear from them. We
Hmm.
never
Yeah.
hear from them.
Hmm.
And that's what's wrong, is that we aren't connecting the way that we're supposed to.
And there's so many. I mean, we all know this because we've met them, but like people that don't know, there are so many people who have committed violent crimes or have been accused of it that are great humans and great
Mhm.
people that
Mhm.
deserve these second chances. And they shouldn't just be blatantly rolled out the way they are.
And I think I think that everybody believes in that. And the problem, and I've really discovered it more on this last project because I've done a couple of big true crime. I guess it fits in that category. I like to call it big justice. I don't like the term true crime,
Yeah.
but and I stay away from most true crime, making it myself. I don't object to anyone enjoying it, and people who enjoy it. I enjoy lots of things too, and many stories. But on that front, what I would say is the thing about those stories is that the law is our law system, legal system is an adversarial system. And it's designed to be that way. It says there's this side and there's that side. And there's no two truths. There's no universal truth. There's no that's a little bit true and this is a little bit true. In our legal system, if this is true on this side, then this side is a dirty, filthy liar. right? And that
Mhm.
is not justice. I mean, it's in many ways, people say, well, it's the best we've got, but is it? There's a lot of justice systems in the world that aren't using those methods, and they're not doing things that way because they're saying there isn't, kind of truth tellers and liars, and we automatically sort of assume that this person's a liar. There's a lot of truth in people's lives, and that part of it is kind of what I try to talk about.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And I was going to ask, obviously you talk about that concept of big justice. I want to talk about kind of what you've done rolling into that with the junk science documentary that you put out, and then obviously the latest project that you're working on, the murder that never happened. Um, you know, you brought out the idea that we lock people up on things that aren't really good valid pieces of evidence, and we're literally locking them up and throwing away the key. And we have to use the voices for the voiceless to get these cases relooked at. I know you talked about that when you produced that documentary about the junk science, and then now moving into Jimmie Duncan's case, which we're going to talk about, obviously, because we just talked about the fact that states are starting to think about repealing the death penalty because of cases
Pennsylvania.
like Jimmie Duncan's. Pennsylvania is getting ready to put up
Yeah.
a bill to abolish the death penalty. So this new project, the murder that never happened, do you want to tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about that? Because it is close to home.
I want to
Because
hear.
Jimmie is Mike's best friend and buddy since Mike got to Angola back in 2000. So
Right. So I remember when I was talking to Mike, and we were talking during Met While Incarcerated filming, and I was interviewing him. And then he said to me one day, it was near the end of, our interviews, and he said, "You've got to meet my buddy Jimmie, and you've got to hear about him. He's innocent." And I knew that's not something that people necessarily say lightly. Everybody says, oh, everybody in prison says they're innocent. They don't. That's a lie.
Mhm.
They
Literally.
don't say they're innocent. Most people take responsibility for their actions. They live it every day. The consequences of their actions are in every moment of their day. They're
Yep.
certainly not walking around thinking they're innocent. So I took it very seriously when Mike said that. And he kind of give me an introduction to it. And of course I did a bit of a dive into Jimmie Duncan's story, and um, I was completely blown away, and as someone who works on a lot of these type of things, at what was reading, because it's one of these situations where, I mean, just to back up, I think that when the first thing that we do, and this is what's so wrong, is we ask, like, what's the charge? And the
Mhm.
charge is always something that automatically we have these varying levels of degrees of who is worthy of our consideration and who isn't,
Mhm.
and this is what the death penalty is built on. It's wrong-minded, the worst of the worst. No, most people you're going to meet on death row are not the worst of the worst. And they wouldn't fit that category if you were actually to objectively examine their case. So in this case, I remember, I think it was you who told me what it was. And I again went, oh, because even in storytelling, like, there's certain, when you're making a documentary, when you're pitching it, I've certainly encountered this on this project. When you tell someone what the charge is, they change. People
Mhm.
are there's one thing with, somebody who's innocent, and it was a murder that somebody committed, and maybe it was this person, maybe it was that person. Or another
mhm.
thing where it's, somebody who's involved already in crime, and they say, well, it's criminals, and criminals take risks, and those kind of people are seen as somehow more forgivable. So, when I found out that this was based on the death of a child, I knew it was really going to be a challenging story to tell.
Mhm.
But very quickly, because I'm a journalist and I'm used to jumping past the immediate to dig in, very quickly I realized that even though he was convicted of a horrific crime, like the worst crime you can imagine, um, the evidence actually wasn't there. And my thesis on this, and you'll see in the film and podcast, is that part of there was a hysteria to this crime that created the injustice. There was an idea that people bought into, and they once you buy into something like that, you can never walk back because it almost makes you a bad person. So
Mhm.
he was convicted of raping and murdering a child who was in his care.
Mm.
It's a terrible, terrible thing if true. And of course, everyone, this is really low-hanging fruit on the justice scale. Nobody, is going to support that a person who does something like that. Um,
Mhm.
they might even allow police or other people to do things that they
Yeah.
don't really think they should do. It's that category of crime where you say to yourself, if it were me, I would want them to do whatever it took to get the bad guy and put him away. And in fact, that's what happened. So
Yeah.
in this case, the reason why I've titled it at this point, The Murder That Never Happened, is because I want people to know that immediately about
Mhm.
this story. Because this whole idea, and this is watch any true crime show, this whole idea of I'm going to take you down a path making you absolutely convinced this person did it, and then I'm going to slip in a bunch of innocent stuff, and then I'm going to like work my magic. And I don't like that. I think it's misleading. I think it's wrong. I think if we're really talking about justice stories, it's not the right way to go.
It's like the Stephen Avery documentary that came out, and everyone was like, "Wow, wow, wow!" And then all this stuff came out was like, "Oh, they didn't include this, 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 this."
That's
Like,
right. But once you get people believing something, it's very hard to get them to unbelieve it. And
hmm
that's what happened in Jimmie Duncan's case. These people, I read the jury selection. They were asked, Have you seen a headline on this?" And they said, "Yes, I did." And multiple people, they said, he was arrested for, raping and murdering a baby who was in his care, a 23-month-old child, his girlfriend's child. That's what they read. Couple lines, right? And then they said, I will never not believe that he didn't do this.
and they were still
Just
on.
because it's so terrible, right? And it's almost like the more terrible something is, the more you can't walk back from it mentally, emotionally. And I think it's in us as a protective mechanism, evolutionary reaction and response to things that are horrible to say, wow, protect ourselves, gather together, get tribal about this. And that's what happened. So
Mhm.
I can see very clearly in walking through this that people were quite convinced that this happened. There was I definitely believe that this happened in 1993 in December, and Jimmie Duncan was caring for his girlfriend's child, um, and she had a previous medical history that most people, the jury certainly never found out about, and most people, even to this day, don't know about. And that information was buried. She had a previous medical history and she had a previous injury from the weeks before. And so Haley Olivo, her name is, a beautiful spark of a little girl that everybody who talks about her loves her with all their heart, as does Jimmy. And when people talk about her, you understand a little bit about how, you know, physically competent and precocious and wonderful this little girl was. But she had a history of seizures. She'd been having seizures. They'd been documented. They didn't exactly know why. She had pneumonia. She had been given, medication for that could also cause a physical, she had an allergic reaction to it that causes a physical reaction to your body, and that was documented. She she loved to climb on everything and jump on everything and be run around, and just like a very active kid of that age. And she had an accident 2 weeks before where she was climbing up to reach her piggy bank on top of a chest of drawers and it fell on top of her, and she had a head injury. They took her to the hospital. She had it examined and she had skull fractures from that injury. And she spent time in the hospital. And then, so soon after that, Jimmie Duncan is giving her, puts her in the bath on December 18th, 1993. And in the morning when his girlfriend Allison and Haley's mom goes to work. And she was in, he said just enough water to cover her toys. And any parent is going to know, or caregiver is going to know what that means.
Hmm.
And the police measured it at the deep end. It was 3.5 inches of water at the deep end of the bathtub, and they checked everything to make sure it didn't leak water. And she was playing in there, and he was in there with her for a while. Series of events happened, and she was playing in there, and he then went left the room. He was in the kitchen talking to her through the wall and chatting while she was playing, and then heard a loud splash and went in to find her face down in the bathtub. And it's a horrific thing even to imagine, you know and every person's worst nightmare. And he pulled her out. He tried to resuscitate her. He tried to save her life. He didn't have a home phone, so he ran to the neighbor's house, and they provided CPR. They phoned 911. A police officer came. He performed, or they performed CPR. The police officer came. He performed CPR. EMTs came. They performed CPR. She went to the hospital. She was intubated. They had to redo her intubation at the hospital. They tried to save her life, and then she was pronounced dead not long afterwards. And it was absolutely devastating to everyone involved, because you can remember this little girl had been in that hospital a couple of weeks before. So
Mm.
she was known to people. She had been having all these health issues. The family, there was a lot of strife in the family because of Haley's care, and how, she spent a lot of time with different family members. So it was just a really all around tragic situation. And then, as we'll detail in the film, within 72 hours, this accident, this terrible, tragic accident became the most horrific crime you could ever imagine. And the details of it, I won't even report all of them, because the kind of things that were said in that trial that eventually happened in 1998, many of them were an absolute fiction with not an ounce of truth to back them up. But what they did have to back them up was the science of two, at the time, fairly prominent doctors, forensic scientists, one a pathologist, Dr. Stephen Hain from Mississippi, and the other an odontologist who's like a forensic dentist, Dr. Michael West, also from Mississippi. And those two worked together. They promised magical results. They were getting conviction after conviction in Mississippi. And so Louisiana, Monroe, Louisiana, only about an hour and a half away from where they were, uh, basically put in the call and said, we're going to go to them rather than go to our own medical examiner in Louisiana, our state medical examiner. We're going to these two. And there's a variety of reasons for that that I will detail in the
Like, is
documentary
that
and
legal?
podcast. It was. I mean, there were issues around it, but it wasn't the first time. They had done this before, and they had been trying Stephen Hain, which, you know, just to, spoiler alert, anybody who's read anything about this knows that Stephen Hain and Michael West are now disgraced.
Yep.
Both, they have multiple wrongful convictions between them. They have multiple, even more wrongful convictions on their own. And they have their methods. First of all, bite mark science has been completely discredited. It
Hmm.
shouldn't even be talked about. The way that, even recent articles coming out about it, I'm shocked at how much ink this junk science has been given. It is absolute garbage. And there should be no one who is sitting in prison based on bite mark science right now alone. And people are. So
Yeah.
this is it's really shocking. It has a fascinating history, starting with Ted Bundy. I mean, it's the first big case, and the first known case, and it's believed, I'm not sure it is, but it's believed that the last person on death row that's a big bite mark case for Hain and West is Jimmie Duncan. So when I first
Yeah.
started looking into it, speaking with, after Mike said, "Hey, you want to hear about my friend?" I was shocked to discover that much of the evidence that should have exonerated Jimmie Duncan was known in 2008. And so
Wow.
the question becomes, why are you still in there? And everybody who I talk to about this or who reads this or finds out about it asks that question. And this is where, in my projects, I like to take the question on that hasn't been done. I'm not interested in retelling the same story that largely has been a court story. I wanted to know the personal story. Who are the people? Who are the people who were affected by Hain and West? And I'm putting a call out there. Everyone share this. If anyone has a story of Dr. Stephen Hain or of Dr. Michael West for their loved one who is incarcerated, I want to know it. If they were involved in your case, if they were involved in your person's case, please tell me because there's a lot. I'm creating a database on their work that is extensive. There's a lot that hasn't been talked about them. Some of it, all of it's not necessarily going to go in this, but I believe that if Jimmie's case actually falls, that people who potentially have an argument on a Dr. Stephen Hain case will be able to revisit it.
Are these men in
Wow.
prison?
No. Dr. Stephen Hain is deceased. It's believed. I still have no evidence to prove that. Most people have
Mm.
said that he is. And he is believed to have passed away in 2020, 2021, somewhere in there. And but he essentially, after, a lot of these wrongful convictions started to surface, there's
Mm-hmm.
several really famous ones that have been talked about a lot as they started to surface and people started to go free. And a couple of really brave people who I interview in my film. My film's about the people. It's not
Mm-hmm.
about the legal documents. It's not about the lawyers. It's about the people along the way who knew, who were hurt, who were affected by this also. And those people throughout the film come to join us. I feel like I'm collecting justice, here and there.
Mm-hmm.
They come to join us on this journey to say, what's going to happen with Jimmie Duncan? Let's bring justice forward. They're coming forward with their stories of what they went through, and frankly, they don't have to. But when I tell them that someone else is going through this, there's that human connection. These people, they may have, mourned their dead. They may have dealt with the suffering of the loss that came from these men and the prosecutors who support them. The most important part of this,
Mm-hmm.
and the system that continued to support them when they became aware of the issues. When we talk about those things, many of those people don't have to come forward, but they do because they know what it's like to be on the other side of that injustice when it's the state expert, the smartest person in the room. Right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the person with the degree and the credentials, and they're the expert. And we all watched CSI, and we all know that this is the science. It is not science, a lot of it. It is fabrication. It's negligence. It's also people who make terrible mistakes, but those mistakes should be discovered. It's not
Yeah.
perfect, but I can tell you that any case for me right now that started in the early 90s and may have gone to court in the 90s under this kind of policing and this kind of science is suspect. I honestly
Yeah.
don't think that, and a lot of people, because of the hysteria, which I can talk a bit more about, but the hysteria of the times, the tough on crime policies that America
Mm-hmm.
brought in 1994 that led to sweeping changes in the legal system. Because of that, a lot of the people on death row, a very high percentage, are cases from the 90s across America. And many of these cases had the same type of evidence as foundational to them. Remember, this is pre-internet, right? This is pre Innocence Project and people who were really fighting in the innocence movement to revisit
Mm-hmm.
cases. Before that, no one was looking. Once you were convicted, that's it, right?
Yeah.
But in these cases, pre-internet, pre-innocence movement, and pre-DNA. So science was a lot of wacky stuff. Forensics was a lot of strange things mixed in with some things that were better, but they all became equivalent. It wasn't until DNA that we started talking in probabilities. That's what science is. It's probability. It's not certainty. So, in DNA, they'd say the probability is 1 in a billion. Pretty good, and but in these sciences, these, bite marks, ballistics, blood spatter. A lot of these kind of sciences, they're not science actually. A lot of these are junk science, but they were talked about with certainty. So
Hmm.
Michael West used to say, "Indeed and without a doubt." That was his catchphrase. That's not even it's not even a legal term. You would say with a degree of medical certainty. But he would say
Hmm.
indeed and without a doubt because he was, wanted to be this cute country dentist. And people loved it, and juries ate it up because juries want certainty, especially when they're dealing with someone's life. And I can tell you right now that what the jury had to deal with in this case, I feel for them. I feel for them. Like there was absolutely all the evidence that could have presented innocence, or reasonable doubt, even in Jimmie Duncan's case, was either buried, sealed, or removed for decades. Exculpatory information that he should have had, he got in 2015 or 2019. And when I tell people that, they start to realize, oh, this is how it happens. So in that case, I would say that, those juries of that time, it's not their fault. They're not bad people. Like if I were sitting in that room, I don't believe in the death penalty at all, but if I had to follow the law that was the law of the time, and I were sitting in that room and being a responsible person, I would have convicted Jimmie Duncan. And then if I had to vote for the death penalty, I would have because of the evidence. Okay. It
Yeah.
was a very compelling case at the time.
Yeah. I was going to say too, and correct me if I'm wrong, the ones that the people on death row in Mississippi that were convicted under West and Haney's testimonies with junk science bite mark evidence were all exonerated. And I want to say it was like 3 to 5 of them, correct?
There's quite a few people. I wouldn't say everybody's been exonerated, but there were the people who were on death row
Hmm.
have been under West and Hain, the two of them together,
Hmm.
have been exonerated or freed.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is in many of these cases, it's because of DNA evidence. And DNA evidence came around, luckily, to disprove it. But as y'all know, not everybody has DNA evidence. And in fact, in Jimmie Duncan's case, they did a rape kit, and there was no DNA evidence, and they used that against them. There was no DNA evidence. There was no blood on the scene. There was no evidence at all that a crime took place. And a detective, testified even in his hearing in 2024 and said, if it was there, I would have found it. And that got used against him. They said, oh, he was so diabolical that he actually took the time to clean up the scene and to physically clean her body of evidence, which, as we know, isn't how evidence works.
Oh
But
my
what
God.
happened back then is that it just made him even more diabolical. And this is why I say there was an element of hysteria that took over with we can explain the fact that this should be exonerating, this should be reasonable doubt, and instead we're going to we're going to turn it on its head. So
Like
you're
they
right.
push their false narrative more to back up their lack of evidence.
And, I believe they believed it. Like, I can
Hmm.
honestly see from the time, I can, after all this time, when I get into it, I really believe that people at the time believed he did this and they absolutely should have been put away. And I believe that you know, I believe they did what they felt they had to do that. But first of all, some of it was wrong. And secondly, when you get to, 5 years later and you're having a trial, or you get to 1 year after that and you have a direct appeal, or you get to a few years after that and you have an appeal to the Supreme Court, state Supreme Court, we should be finding out things by then. And we should actually be uncovering them and hearing them. And that's why those checks and balances are there. They're in the
Mhm.
system for that reason. But what happens with a mistake or a lie or a combination of both that comes out of a hysteria is that everybody after that has to find a way to keep it under wraps, to keep it covered up, to find another reason why. And the law frankly allows them to do
Mhm.
that. The law allows mistakes to continue for decades. And it's shocking to me that we're not better at this by now, especially when people's lives are at stake.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I commend you on this because this I know this is not an easy project because it's in Louisiana first of all,
Hmm.
because it is the death penalty, and obviously now executions have started back. It's definitely a story that needs to be told now. So I applaud you for your bravery on taking this on, and wanting to bring that light, the bring those mistakes out from the 90s, and make people aware, like we should be doing, like the courts and the justice system should be looking at these things, but all they're doing is just reburying it to save face, really, you know. So I applaud you
Thank you.
for challenging them to really look at all of the things now that we do have all this new technology to be used.
Well, and it's for me, it's the people who've come forward. I believe we can trust people with the truth. The reason why I didn't do Jimmie Duncan's story back when I first met him, and I had to circle around again, is because, he had been, and there's, I don't know exactly the circumstances of this, but he had been told, let the law do what the law needs to do. And many people, who are in his situation, they get legal advice not to speak. And so he said, I can't talk right now. And I said, no problem. Let's keep in touch. And we've, because you and I have kept in touch all these years, and he and I have kept in touch every couple of years here and there. And I actually went off and did another story inspired by his case in Canada that led to several wrongful convictions being uncovered. And it was only because, I knew about his case. So it started me down a path that I think, was sort of meant to be. Those people are certainly grateful for it. But I think now, like, because there's so many wrongful convictions, and people, if you're on any of these, follow the innocence world at all, it's almost defeating. It's
Yeah.
almost defeating because you have not only innocence cases but wrongful convictions or over convictions, and there's so much wrong, and that defeats people. And I really want to say, what I hope this story does and what has inspired me is to take a different path on it and say, let's trust people with the truth, not the case. The case is the law. It is what certain people can say, it's what gets accepted, it's what doesn't. The truth is the true story of the people who lived it. And these people along the way, who are other people who lost a child, who lost a parent, who were on the other side of a wrongful conviction and didn't get justice because people went after the wrong person. All of these people are victims of this. And when you realize that, like, these people are the brave ones because they've listened. I've told them these are the facts. I've let them read things that the public doesn't get access to unless you know where to find it. I've said, here's the information, read it and tell me what you think. And then they say yes, and I want to be part of this, and I want to be part of, what's next in the way that we talk about this, because it's just too easy to feel defeated right now. And we really don't have to. And we're not going to get any better at this. Someone has to be right and someone has to be wrong.
Mhm.
So I've just said, listen, I'll share this with you, I'll talk it through with you. And there are people close to this who have come around and they've said, oh my God, Jimmie Duncan's innocent. And
Yeah.
they have come around to that. And to me, it's stunning that someone this is what I mean about trusting people with the truth. It is
Mhm.
stunning, and it's such a gift to see that happen, because it inspires me and everyone else to say, if they can hear that and they can, meet someone new. And I've told them about Jimmie and who he is and what kind of person he is, and more about that, because also, a person isn't a case. They have a whole
Mhm.
life, and they're somebody real, and they're probably also not the person they were 30 years ago. Um,
Mhm.
and so that part of it, I think, is really healing for everyone. There's other people, and I don't blame anyone for the pain they have because of this. There were
Yeah.
people who were told a story and a narrative, and it was horrific, and it's impossible to unhear or unbelieve. And honestly, if it were my family, I can say I would feel it. I would feel it.
Mhm.
And so, I have so much empathy for everyone. There's really good people in this. Like, you talk about Louisiana and it being hard. It's hard for some reasons, but I have met the nicest, best people in making this film who are who listen, who care, who want to connect on things that I don't meet in the city I live in. People like around me aren't like that. And so I've met some really genuine people who have put their heart into this. And that's what's going to make the difference.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I
Catherine,
want to Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry,
I
Paige.
was just gonna say, I just love like your energy for like the way that you handle these situations, and I wish there was a way to like multiply you, and like we could
Yeah.
have multiple people out there. Like I feel like that would solve our criminal justice mass incarceration problem,
Oh,
honestly.
Yeah.
I wish I had answers. I just have questions. I hope that people will ask them. And, that's what I hope to inspire is that people ask questions about the system, about each
Hmm.
other, and what I have been so inspired by is just in the very short time I've put something forward in social media. I've never seen such a positive reaction. People are usually, you're going to get a little of each, you're going to get a bit of sideism, and especially around justice cases. And wow, I mean, the kindness, the empathy, like those kind of things, I'm really inspired by that. And I see it out there, it's in us, it's still there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's encouraging.
Well, it is very encouraging and inspirational, and it's good to see that people are rallying around and supporting you on this project. So the documentary is The Murder That Never Happened, and then there's also a podcast as well. Do you want to talk about a little bit about the podcast and
We
what you
We
the
hope
goal
there's
is
a
with that?
podcast. We've been working on it. It's really hard to do both of these things. Like it's such a strange thing to have, the when I first started talking to Jimmie, I felt like an overwhelming responsibility of having him say, I would like you to tell my story,
Mhm.
and it's huge. And so you have that, and I'm gathering and I'm investigating, and I'm going through the all thousands of pages of legal documents, thousands and thousands, and phoning people and talking to them and verifying. And then I've got a pitch. And I honestly think I should write a whole article on just pitching a story like this one. But it's a lot of work in between, the making and the marketing of something. And so we're talking to people about a podcast. We hope to have a podcast. I mean, there's so much of this story to tell. It honestly should be a 5-part series at this point, because I do
For
branch off
sure.
from Jimmie's story. Because of him and this story, I found, you know at least half a dozen other cases that need
Yeah.
to be exposed, that need to be talked about, that need to shine a light on what happened there. And so it's much more than, wow, look at this one amazing weird case in Louisiana that people might want to write off as just some backwards state with backwards justice. It's not. It's much bigger than that. And so I want people to see it as that, and see, through the stories of the people who have been the most affected. So I hope it becomes more than that too.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm thinking just because of Jimmy's story, there's got to be, hundreds of stories like his that, need to be looked at, and cases that need to be reopened or, brought back into the light because of these fabricated, or not fabricated, but just junk science evidence or fabricated evidence, and, false testimony, kind of thing, where their stories also need to be heard as well.
They do,
So,
and that's why we want to pursue any stories that have a connection to Dr. Hain, Stephen T. Hain, and obviously Michael West as well. Although I think that a lot of people have talked about Michael West and bite mark science. We're not really getting that into it in the documentary because it is something that I think was kind of the story until 2008. It's the story after that is how could you possibly have a man in prison with this piece being a huge linchpin to his case? That's story, but it's not really about him per se in his work. That has had a lot of time spent on it, but there's a lot of people who haven't, and a lot of stories that haven't. So we're hoping, to dig into what happened with Dr. Hain and remembering that Dr. Hain is a tool. He is a tool of the state. He was a
Hmm.
very handy one for Mississippi, performing thousands of autopsies over a 20-year period. When you think about that, I mean, I'm sure he got some right, but when you look at his record, there's a lot of problems there, and they have been identified to the highest levels. The highest levels have said his work is really, really problematic, and that he tended to believe that he was on the team of the prosecution rather than objective science, and worked that way. So Dr. Haynes' cases, will probably be unfolding for another decade. The one thing I want to say lastly is this pain, this loss, this grief, that's what it is. Just like all y'all's pain, loss, and grief out there for the people, and the things that have happened in your life. This is the same one. And this has been felt by many, many, many people because of this work that was done, and it ripples through generations. I've
Hmm.
talked to people whose kids hate Jimmie Duncan, and their kids would have grown up hating Jimmie Duncan, and thinking he was this monster that was depicted in his trial, without evidence to support it. And so, what I can say is that this isn't something that just touches a life and then everybody moves on. What I've really come to see over and over again is how deeply it has affected people. And I interview people, and there's not a person who hasn't cried about this many years later and how it affected them, and also shed tears for Jimmie Duncan.
yeah.
Wow. When does this come out?
Well, I'm still in the process of working on it. I'm still gathering. I'd still love to talk to people who might have some involvement in it, or as I say, with Dr. Stephen Hain, or Michael West. And so I'm still working on that part of it, but I am going into editing in the next couple of weeks. So I hope it will be finished by end of June or July.
Oh.
And the podcast part of it, I can't really say at this point, but that's when the film would be finished. Um, we hope to have a festival release and a theatrical launch, and we really want to make a big splash. We would
You
love to
should.
have, it seen widely. That's always the goal, that people get behind it and support it. So you can follow us on our socials. Some of them I just launched because I'm doing it. I'm doing all the jobs. I'm doing all the
Yeah.
jobs here.
Mm-hmm.
I have a great team of people, though, too. I just want to say that, there are people that if they did not believe in this and believe in what I was trying to do so strongly and support me, it would not have happened. And I have written several notes to people on my team who said, I'm in this with you. Let's go do it, and set other things aside, who, basically said, I'm on this with you. And there's a small team of them. And this would not have happened if it wasn't for them.
I love that.
And so, for people that are interested in following your progress with with the documentary, the murder that never happened, how can they go about following it and keeping updated on, obviously, Jimmie Duncan's case and what's happening with that and all that?
So, the murder that never happened is our handle. We have a Threads, we have a Instagram, we have a Facebook page, and we have X. or Twitter and account. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I have a website, but I haven't put anything on there yet. So you're not going to find anything there yet. And more will be coming out as we go. I think, obviously, big news for everyone watching. We're waiting on a ruling because
Mhm.
Jimmie Duncan had a hearing in September of 2024 that was 5 days in court. He in Monroe, the same courtroom, well, same building he was convicted in 26 years before. And he got to go in that courtroom. And really, for the first time, his legal team, elite team of absolutely incredible experts, the dream team, came and armed with boxes of evidence. And they had been building, and they did a phenomenal job of undoing what was put in court in 1998. I call it an undoing because I've never seen anything like it. It sort of looked at each element that was of the case and then undid with the original evidence, but also all the new science. A lot of science we have now discredits what they said before. Things we didn't know, things that we should have known, things that maybe people didn't look at, people are looking at now. And so new science is such a huge part of any kind of forensic case being revisited, where there's really, especially death penalty cases, if you're convicted on a forensic case, there's probably science that disagrees with what happened 20 years ago, and so it should be revisited. So that part of it is really important. So that happened in September. Top experts from across the US and some around the world came, they testified, they gave expert witness testimony. There wasn't really much of an argument put back by the state. The state did not refute their arguments. That's really important. The state's position on this is we got it right the first time. They don't believe they have to present a case to reconvict him. Their main argument is that this isn't new or it isn't discoverable, which is kind of a technicality of the law to try to say you have to prove this is new and undiscoverable rather than just saying the truth.
Mhm.
And that happens, but in this case, there'll be a ruling expected really any day now on this case as to whether or not the judge could vacate Jimmie Duncan's conviction and let the DA decide if there's going to be a new trial, or and the DA could appeal it. There's all kinds of things that could happen, but it's going to be whatever comes out of this trial or this evidentiary hearing is going to be amazing because it was fantastic. The judge was so engaged. He listened, he asked questions. He was so involved in what happened as one would need to be in a complicated case like this. And so I think everybody has pretty high hopes that there's going to be some clarity that will come from this.
Wow. Well, we're looking forward to we're following along, and if you need any information from us, our viewers and listeners about this documentary in this case, please comment below. Please reach out. We will get you to Catherine if you and her pages
We'll link
and
them
social media.
in the
Yeah, we'll
bio.
link them below, and we will get you guys whatever information you have. And if you have a loved one that has a case with Dr. West or Hain, please reach out to Catherine or to us, and we'll get you to her because she is looking for more information on those two doctors.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
Well,
so
Catherine.
much. Thank
Thank
you.
yeah,
you.
it's so good to see you. I mean, we talk on the regular, but it's so good to see you. I can't wait to see you in person
Me
again
too.
when you come back down. So we'll have to link up. But I can't thank you enough for being here today, for helping Jimmie Duncan with his case and bringing the truth to light, and doing what you do for our loved ones in general, making them human beings and telling the story of their lives. And like you said, the truth comes out, when that happens. So what you do is amazing. And like I said, you're inspirational. And
Period.
I have mad respect for you as a
Yeah.
female in an industry that is a tough one. I've seen you work, I've seen you fight. So I can't thank you enough for being here with us and sharing your journey and your projects with us on Love Within Walls.
It's an
Thank
honor.
you so much. I'm so happy
Thank
to have
you.
been here.
We're glad. We're happy that you're here, and we're happy to have you on the pod. And it's like Paige said, it is definitely an honor. So,
Thank y'all.
all right, Paige, we got a mean tweet this week. A really messed up, mean tweet. So,
Just a really weird one, I'll be honest. It was a comment on Instagram, and it was from our friend, our new friend, who has already deleted it, actually. His name is Drew Ski Fades, and
ooh.
he's a barber, and it was a public account. So I'm like, this is a real bold comment to leave on a public barber account. But all right, sure, do your thing. Um, he responded to our video talking about, it was a clip of us talking about the gladiator fights. His take, abusing children, laughing face. Who's doing the abusing? Because all I see is two kids fighting. Putting two random kids against each other like you're picking out of a fight. I don't 100% agree with that, but if two kids have a problem with each other, they should be able to hash it out in a controlled environment where guards can break it up if it gets to be too much. When I was in juvie, kids got dumped in blind spots only because they didn't want to get in trouble and get added more time. What do you think is more safe? It's a wild take because you're not a boy. And a lot of the time, problems get squashed after a squabble with boys. My point is that it takes a lot to go to juvie. If a kid, not true. If a
Yeah.
kid don't like fighting, I bet he won't do anything and end up back there. And if a kid likes fighting, put him up against another kid, and he would never have to he never had to pick on, because most of these kids can they can win against. Ain't no learning from that, and I bet he won't want to fight again. So how's this an outrageous take?
And then he went on to comment another
Well,
comment saying, "This is rehabilitation," basically is what he said.
I'm sorry, correct. His first comment was, "This is the best way of reforming," and I was like, "Abusing
Yeah.
children's the best way to reform?"
Yeah.
Crazy take, and that was his
Yeah.
response to that. Crazy.
And then he
I
deleted it because
yeah.
clearly he was
Well,
embarrassed by his own
first,
words.
first before he deleted it, I responded and I said, "Yes, this is an outrageous and definitely another word that I would use to describe your take. Your argument is that correctional officers facilitating child fights is somehow safer than just stopping violence altogether. Just because fights happen in blind spots doesn't mean the solution is to turn into a blood sport and an amusement for grown adults in power. These are kids, many of whom have already faced trauma, and institutionalized violence only reinforces the cycle that keeps them in the system. Rehabilitation isn't about who can throw hands better. It's about breaking the cycle, not encouraging it. Grow up."
Yep.
And I shared it on our story, and Homeboy never responded. And then I went and looked. He deleted it.
Your words gonna come back and bite you in the bum,
I thought you
dude.
stood on that. You didn't stand on
Even our
that?
producer, I think even our
You didn't stand
producer
on
was
that?
like, yeah. I think even our producer commented at one point, like, this is a wild take.
Because I was just like, "You're commenting this on your public barber page." Got it. All right. You're a
Not a good
character.
look, honeys. Not a good
No.
look.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, Paige, it's time for Securus to give us a ring-a-ding-ding.
Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from
Your boy Fred.
an inmate at Florida Correctional Institution.
Aw, he's spunky today. It's our boy Frederick over at FCI, which means we have some questions and comments to go through. One question that we had was from, I'm pulling it up. All right. Actually, it wasn't a question. It was a comment from Dolphin Baby 50. She said, "I'm going to miss everyone. I can't believe I'm at the end." I guess she's at the end of her journey. Her loved one is coming home. So Dolphin Baby, we are happy that you're with us, and just know you always have a home here. You always have a home here. We're
A bunch
so
of
happy.
ex-prison wives that have their men home and still listen to us, so you don't have to leave, Dolphin.
Yeah, you're with us. You're in it to win it. I know you're going to be busy when he comes home for a little while, but doing some things. But we're here for you, honeys. We're here for your post incarceration as well. If you need support, reach out. We're so happy that you get this opportunity, that he gets a chance to come home, and we hope that y'all's relationship blossoms and flourishes on the outside as well. So thank you for that comment. Right, Paige?
The next question we have is from Addie. It says, what does true rehabilitation inside the system actually look like to you, in your opinion? In my opinion, counselors would be counselors, and they would actually help the men, and like their caseloads would be a lot smaller, and rehabilitation would be way more of a focus rather than other things. And they wouldn't take away programs for things that like COs did. Like, for example, they've canceled program for the past 3 days at Joseph's prison because the CO lost their keys.
Okay. Wow.
Like, that's not their fault.
No.
Like, it's like, have some kind of place, like something in place where like things can happen and they can still program, like, or at least the guys that are on the right path where they don't get held up with the rest of everyone. Because there is a big majority of people in prison who do want to be rehabilitated and do want that chance. And I can't imagine what half of them would do if they actually had counselors. Like,
Yeah. It's definitely needed. I think, the psychology, psychiatric part of it needs to happen there for true rehabilitation. And I also think to rehabilitate someone, they need to be shown love and shown care. A lot of these people in these facilities have not had that growing up, or, have had traumas. Those need to be worked through.
Or they found it in prison. They found community through gangs, and like that's their community now. So it's like showing them that there are people that care about them, and not everyone out here is just like thinks they're a piece of shit.
Yeah. To me, that's a huge thing. I think because I see with my kids, like I teach EDBD kids. And if you don't know what EDBD is, it's behaviorally disturbed or emotionally disturbed children. And I find, if you just talk to them and treat them with respect and show them that you care about them and show them love, I think it really does change the way they see you, the way they see other people. And it allows them to act in a way that is, not lashing out, not reactive. And so you open a whole new world when you do that. And I think to rehabilitate somebody, they need that because, somewhere along the line, something went wrong. They made a wrong decision because of something, or they were triggered because of something. So all of those things need to be there, that the counseling, the uncovering the trauma, dealing with it, learning how to be a good human being. I think those are things, and they don't get that if they don't shown that or treated away. We treat them like they're animals, which is to me, the opposite of rehabilitation. We lock them in cages. We take away all their privileges and their rights. That's not what true rehabilitation is to me. So maybe I'm a big baby, but still, I think to rehabilitate somebody, you can't just punish them. That's punitive is never going to work to me.
The next question I had here is, what do you hope that you aren't discussing on episode 100? This.
Yeah.
This, I hope that like we're at a different place in our political climate, and I hope that we're moving in progressive directions. But that's just my hope. I'm not going to say what I think.
Yeah, I hope that we're able to not have to talk about the fact that we have to, people that say, well, you shouldn't break the law.
I hope people are over that. I hope people are more empathetic and more open-minded.
Yeah. I have one question from Cat Lady Kella Lay. I like that name. It says, what are your thoughts on Yolanda Saldivar, who killed Tejano singer Selena? She's up for parole at the end of this month on March 30th. Obviously, there's a lot of videos out. There's a lot of memes out there. I saw A one that I shared was a girl with her chancla waiting outside of the prison to throw it at Yolanda if she gets out. So I guess she was asking us what our thoughts are on this controversial person possibly getting out or getting parole on March 30th.
What's your thoughts?
Oh, it's hard because I love Selena so much. But I also don't believe in incarcerating people for the rest of their lives either, unless they absolutely need it.
I'd be curious what she did while she was in there.
That I would need to look at her jacket for sure, because I would need to know if she was doing things to help others or doing things to help herself
Like,
to
did you
get
just go in
better.
there and wallow? Did you
Yeah.
actually try to make some kind of a difference or do like programs? Did you,
Yeah.
I'd be interested
But
in that. I feel like that's more telling of her character moving forward.
yeah, and obviously we'd never want to see something like this ever happen again. And so I would want to know that she's in a good place of mind, in a sound frame of mind. And keep in mind, she was older when this happened back in, I want to say Selena died in 1997. She was older then, so I can only imagine how old she is now. And
She's
if I'm
older.
thinking
I've
about
seen a
how old she
picture.
is now, huh?
She's older. I've seen pictures. She's
Yeah.
definitely older.
That, at this point, is she really a danger to society? At that age, are they really? I don't know. So that's something else I would also like to think about too. But obviously, my first reaction, based on like, when you tell people these things, like kind of like what Catherine was saying, your first reaction is like, no, well, no, of course not, and then you start thinking, you're like, well, she is really old. Well, has she done things to improve herself or help others while inside? And then I'm like, as a criminal justice advocate, obviously I don't want to see her, die in there, but I don't wish death upon anybody, but
Yeah.
you know, it's just it's a tough one. That's a tough one. I would love to hear our viewer listener thoughts on this about Yolanda, and what do you think? Because I've seen birthday parties, Selena birthday parties, where the piñata is a face of Yolanda. So, there are a lot of strong feelings with
There
this,
are.
obviously, because first of all, Selena was a huge star and she was getting bigger in the English side at that point. She had just put out her English album right before she died. And so I know she has, she was a major superstar. And so people took that personally, so I understand both sides of it. I do. So it's hard for me. I will say it's definitely hard, but I would love to hear other people's perspectives on it. So, all right, I think that is all I had. Did you have anything else, Paige? I mean, other than like comments and stuff.
That's it.
All right, I do have one speaky pipe that we will play very quickly.
Hey Gigi, hey Paige. I just wanted to start off by saying you guys are awesome. The podcast is doing amazing. You have such a great group of women, and you guys should be super proud of yourselves. My question is, how do you guys react when you find out something new or vulnerable about your men? Like anytime they have shared something with you that may have been hard for them to say. My loved one recently did so after one of our spicy nightly readings, and I know that it was a big deal for him and something that he previously disagreed with, but after tonight he changed his mind and said he'd be open to it. So I'm wondering how you guys react or go about learning that new information with them.
I feel like this is hard to give insight on unless I know what that information is, because it could obviously whatever it is, validating them and letting them know that they're allowed to feel that way, and thanking them for sharing that with you, you know what I mean, and being open. I think those are the best things for anyone in any situation where they share a vulnerable thing or something that is close to the heart, is just kind of making them know that, this is a safe space for them to continue to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think just, saying, wow, thank you for telling, I feel like, thank you for telling me and honoring them and letting them know that you are their safe space, just kind of reassuring them that they can come to you with this and y'all can have discussions about this and not be, and for them to feel like, in prison and when they're incarcerated, we are their safe space. We are their break from that reality. And so just to be there for them, really. I mean, there's really, it's hard to say how I would react if I don't know what it is, like you said. But when Mike tells me something that's a vulnerable moment, I'm there for him. And he's there for me when I share things about my life. So I guess it just goes both ways, like just validating them and saying, I'm here for you, whatever you need to talk about. If you need to vent, I'll just listen to understand. I don't have to say anything, I would just remind them of that safe space that you are there for them, But thank you for the sweet comment, Jess. I appreciate that. And we're so glad you're here and listening and found our community. And, hopefully there's going to be more people that get that support, All right. Well, that's all I had as far as the speaky pipes go. Do we have anything else, Paige?
Not sure.
No. Okay. And be on the lookout for a meme of the week. And we will see you guys next week for episode 51. We love you guys so much. Thank you for being here, being a part of this podcast on episode fucking 50. I'm going to say it like that because I'm just, woo. Sorry.
5050.
Hey, future's so bright, I'm going to need shades. Just saying. Anyway, 50, guys. Thank you for taking us into our golden era. We love you so much. Besitos.
Love you guys so effing much.
And we'll see you next week.
We're about to drop some fire over on the Patreon, by the way.
Yes, please. I'm ready.
If you're not over there, you might miss it.
I'm ready. Come join us. Love you guys.
Love you, friends.
Bye.
This is for the ones who love through the distance, for the ones who stay solid while time keeps ticking, for the ones who hold it down but never lose themselves. This is for the prison wives. Still don't break, love don't fold. I'm still here, I'm still gold. Through the glass, through the gates, ain't no distance make me change. Still don't break, love don't fold. I hold strong, I don't go. I don't wait, I don't beg. I hold it down and lift my head. They don't see the late nights, letters on the table, fighting through the system, just trying to stay stable. They don't see the count days, they don't feel the time crawl. They just see the sentence, but they don't see the love at all. Yeah, I made the vow and I stand 10 toes. Still got my life, still got my goals. I hold it down cause I choose to stay. This love got walls, but it don't got chains. Don't break, love don't fold. I'm still here, I'm still gold. Through the glass, through the gates, ain't no distance make me change. Still don't break, love don't fold. I hold strong, I don't go. I don't wait, I don't beg. I hold it down and lift my head. I'm a prison wife, but I'm still my own. Made my own moves, still stand on my throne. They think I'm just sitting here wasting my days. Nah, baby, I've been building while he counting the days. I ride for my love, I ride for my king, but I ain't no fool, I handle my biz. I ain't weak, I ain't lost, I ain't throwing my worth. I hold it down cause I know what it's worth. Through the letters, through the calls, through the gates, through it all. Love don't break, love don't fade. I'm still here, I'm still brave. Still don't break, love don't fold. I'm still here, I'm still gold. Through the glass, through the gates, ain't no distance make me change. Still don't break, love don't fold. I hold strong, I don't go. I don't wait, I don't beg. I hold it down and I'm still gold. Through the glass, through the gates, ain't no distance make me change. Still don't